The demotion of Pluto to dwarf planet is a proper step to a clearer categorization of solar system bodies. I can see why they think so, but, well, my interest is always on the archetypal level, that 33,000 foot above sea level, and in that realm, the demotion of Pluto from an Olympian to a dwarf seems misguided. Now, let's look at the myth, which is where everything begins and perhaps where things end as well. Pluto, or Hades, as he is more well known, was the famed lord of the underworld and all the wealth that lies in this realm. Although he rarely ventures out of the lower realms in the myth, he is nevertheless a worthy presence in the Olympian pantheon. As the brother of Zeus and Poseidon, he forms part of the masculine triumvirate. The most famous myth in which he is involved is the one in which he abducts Persephone and takes her into the underworld. Persephone's mother Demeter flies into a rage and throws the world into a deep winter until a compromise is struck and Persephone is allowed to live above the earth for 6 months of the year with her mother and 6 months with Hades in the underworld. The key in this story are some pomegranate seeds. This is what condemns Persephone to doing time in the underworld. She eats 6 of them while still there, encouraged by Hades, who knows a thing or two about how to get a girl to grow up and shed her infantile dependence on a domineering mother. And this, in the end, is not a bad thing. Prior to her abduction, Persephone is a hapless girl, too afraid to leave the safety of her mother's side, content to prance around smelling flowers while refusing to take the leap into adulthood. It is only through doing time in the underworld that Persephone emerges as a fully realized grown-up. She has made the Underworld Journey, united with the powers that rule there, and has emerged transformed. This is the metaphorical night sea journey that must be made by adolescents and all the Peter Pans out there if they ever hope to engage with the world in a deeper and more fully realized way. It's the transition we make or refuse to make from childhood into maturity. Some time ago, I had the privilege of speaking of such things to a group of art students who had been working with these mythic figures in an illustration class. I was struck by one image of Persephone depicted wearing a dress sprinkled with tiny pomegranate seeds. I thought this was a brilliant symbolic recognition that once you have consumed the food of the gods, you are forever changed. The underworld has, in effect, imprinted itself on your psyche for all time. The underworld journey is the one we all take, whether willingly or not. When we are willing, we enter through an examination of our inner lives with the help of a depth psychologist, perhaps. Often, we are dragged unwilling into the depths through an external circumstance, a divorce, a career loss, a death. Only by going through the experience, by staying with the feelings that emerge from our dark night, can we hope to emerge after time has passed. This is the inner journey which follows the descent that Persephone took in the myth. She is abducted, held hostage, and returns completely transformed. Now let us return to Pluto, the planet, for a moment. There seems to be a curious synchronicity between the discovery of a planet and the energies that are in the air when the planet is named. When Herschel discovered Uranus in 1781, for example, the world was undergoing a radical reorienting in many different spheres. The Industrial Revolution was well underway, and Europe was just years away from the radical reforms that would be ushered in with the French Revolution of 1789. Across the sea, the American Revolution had helped establish a nation built along very different lines to what had ever been seen. Uranus is a great marker for these energies. The planet is hugely eccentric as it is tipped to its side and spins more like a barrel than a top. Even the name itself points to the fact that it will not conform, as it is the only one named after a Greek god. All others derive their names from the Roman counterparts. Now, Pluto was discovered by Claude Tombaugh in 1930. The times were Pluto-like indeed, as this was the dawn of the atomic age and the rise of Nazi Germany. This was also the beginning of the Great Depression. All three would take the world into one of the darkest periods of human history. Now, 80 years later, Pluto has become a dwarf. Now, the astronomers may have logical reason on their side. They usually do, but I myself would have voted to keep it as it was. For those of us who swim in mythological waters, it seems rather insane to demote an energy that is such a potent underground force. We may demote it, we may ignore it, we may even say it never existed at all, but the gods are watching, and they are laughing, and they may even be waiting for what this bit of hubris will bring.